Oh, Foxy, it's your birthday. Not for real, just for play. This is Cree Summer, and Moana Nui will be right back.
All right, everyone. We're going to start with our next interview here at MomoCon. We have one of our guests, Supastition, who is here today for the first question from one of our press outlets.
How you doing, Jamie? Versus the World. I asked this question the first time people I interviewed. What is your nerdy origin story?
Oh man, I would say so. I'm not gonna really show my age, but growing up when I grew up, I was always into cartoons and action figures and everything like that. And I heard Dave Vincent talk about this. It's like it wasn't cool back then. So it was cool when you were like 7 or 8. But when I started getting up into my teen years, my mom was like, "Boy, you still playing with those toys?" But I had all type of just everything from G.I. Joe, Thundercats to everything like that. Just love cartoons and things like that. So for me, especially being younger, I kind of struggled for acceptance because I felt weird, I felt different, and nobody else around me was like that. So for me, with that, music became kind of my voice, right? Because, especially when looking at, people like Run DMC and different people like that, I was a nerd for music. Like, I was the type of person that if I bought an album, I'd open up the credits and read the credits so many times that I'd memorize it. Like, I'd buy a Big Daddy Kane album and realize, hey, I remember the name Nice and Smooth when their song came out and things like that. So I tried to collect back then it was tapes, CDs, vinyl. So to me, that was my self-expression. That was my nerd moment. And I realized the difference between that was that you've got people that listen to music, and then you have people that actually seek out and try to find new music. And I started doing music with my cousins, but they were casual listeners, right? Like they wouldn't care who made the song. They just know they liked the song. I wanted to know who made it, who produced it. I wanted to know where it was recorded at. I wanted to know where they were from. So that became kind of my, my nerd story. How you doing?
So, as I asked David, what is your hot take for music?
My hot take for music?
Yes.
Oof, man. Never get canceled. My hot take for music is that all of the golden era artists weren't good, right?
Now, can you drop some names, though?
So let me say this. I'm not even going to rephrase it. I think a lot of the golden era artists at that time didn't really care about the culture. I just think they were there at a particular time, right? Like, and you can see that as they get older and they're like 50, 60 years old and they're still trying to make music that's current for the younger generation. While you've got people that I truly respect, like Master Ace, who sticks to his core, and people like that. So I just think a lot of people from that era weren't necessarily good, but it's almost like black movies. Like the first black movies we had weren't necessarily the best, but it's all that we had. And I feel like that with hip hop, a lot of times we didn't have a lot of rappers and producers to choose from, so we were just excited to have it. And now when you look back in hindsight, it's a lot of stuff that I listened to and I bought, I don't care to listen to again back in the day. So that's kind of my hot take on music. So, all right.
Matt Jenkins, Moana Nui Podcast. One, that's not a hot take. That's an honest critique.
People are scared to say that, though, man. Right?
Too bad. But what I wanted to ask you was, of all your past collaborations,
yes,
if you could pick one person from your past collaborations and one person from the current era of hip hop that you would like to work with, who would that be? Now, obviously, if you've got something going on and you can't discuss it, obviously, but it's just, who would you like to work with from back then and now?
Man, one of my past collaborators, my biggest past collaboration might have been, for me, was KRS One. And at that time, KRS One had a label called Grit Records, and they were seeking out talent. and they reached out to me to be on the song. And of course, back then I thought it was just kind of just joking or whatever. You know, KRS One. You know, not necessarily. I didn't work with Questlove, but if people know my history, I was chosen by OK Player for a contest that they had, and then I was brought on stage to perform live on stage with the Roots. And I'd always wanted to see the Roots. So my first Roots show that I was in, I was on stage performing with Black Thought and Skills and Questlove. You know, and I would pair them with somebody new. I would love to see the Roots with, man. I mean, I feel it's so easy to say Kendrick or J. Cole. I'll go out and say like Mick Jenkins. I think, you know, he's a rapper from Chicago. He's really dope. Very unique style, but as someone from my era, we can recognize skill and we can recognize talent. I would love to hear them. You know, Blue is another one, but I think he's already worked with the Roots as well. So, yeah. Oh, I think he had his hand raised. What's that?
As part of the hip hop culture, you know, disagreements happen, beefs happen, and diss tracks are made. What would you rank your top 5 diss tracks?
Top 5 in no particular order?
No particular order, but I am interested to know where Not Like Us ranks.
Or is he that?
That one in particular, you can do that, but I just want to know where Not Like Us ranks.
So let me go through my list and I'll see if it's even on my list. Because I didn't even look at it. So No Vaseline from Ice Cube, because NWA didn't make an album after that. It was over after that. Gotta be KRS One, The Bridge Is Over.
Yeah.
This is my personal favorite because I love Master Ace. Acknowledge from Master Ace. Cannabis Second Round Knockout. You know, I know people aren't the biggest fan of Cannabis, but that record was hard when it dropped. Because I got this 5th spot here. Yeah, I guess I could. I guess Not Like Us could go top 5, but it's different, right? Because we're talking about back then, disc records weren't necessarily made to dance to, and they weren't made to be hit songs. It was almost like disc records, the ones that hit people the hardest, the ones that careers couldn't recover from. So we're still waiting to see what happens. We're still waiting to see the impacts of Not Like Us. That would be probably, Not Like Us would probably be top 5. It would be 5 for me just because of the history that I have with it, you know. It was a big record for this generation, and, you know, and they always hear like the old heads talk about how it was, but I think they got a chance to see it. Only difference is with diss tracks, and I was joking with somebody, is like, this generation, if you get on a record, you gotta take the week off, because like, they're recording songs and putting them out in 24 hours. I got stuff to do. I got to go to work. I got a family. There's like, you got 24 hours to respond. So it's a different type of, generation now.
So I, Media Nut, self-proclaimed master of pop culture. But I love that. But basically, as someone with my own title, I usually, one of my things is that I connect a lot of things with pop culture, and with the different questions that people have already asked you, we've talked a lot about like origins and through levels of nerdyism. When it comes to music as a fellow performer, has any or have you ever thought of any forms of inspiration when it comes to any of your favorite shows or games, or just any form of entertainment that you want to delve into with your music, and like what kind of themes you might want to explore with that?
It's good that you asked that. So earlier in the year, I did sign like a music sync deal. So I've been pitching a lot of songs, and I think that really helps me be a lot more creative. Like I might get a call and say, hey, they're looking for a hip hop song for a Marvel film, or you know, they'll throw it out there really quick. You've got kind of a week to turn it around. And being that I had just my catalog of music, I didn't necessarily feel like I had enough songs to fit all of the ideas that they were pitching. So now, what I started doing was like I'd watch a season of like The Penguin, And I'm like, you know what? Let me just create something based on this show. Not necessarily for that show, but something that if something else comes along, or if I'd watch a drama or something like that. So now I've started creating music just to be heard, because when I started recording music, there wasn't a large audience for it, and I didn't have that platform now. And then I've got like an upcoming album that's coming out probably at the end of the year with RJD2. The people know RJD2. He's produced the theme song for Mad Men. He has one of the greatest instrumental hip hop albums of all time. He's worked with Rhyme Sayers, Def Jux. So working with RJ, he's a producer, DJ, and he plays God knows how many instruments. It's opening up for me to be more creative. And we also look at now doing more sample-free music. And, you know, the sample-free music used to have a stigma of it being kind of cheesy and things like that. But now, just with, you know, like I said, with RJ being a musician, and we have a lot more options and stuff like that too. So,
So you talking about sampling. I have noticed a lot of new school artists are using samples from old school stuff. How do you feel about them trying to do that nostalgia, I guess you could say?
I think I don't really mind that, right? But the thing that gets me is that when I hear someone sample something, it reminds me of how old I am, because we used to have that unspoken 15, 20-year rule, like you couldn't sample something that came out 10 years ago. It wasn't old enough. But then I realized, oh, that song was 30 years ago. Like, to me, it's still 10 years in my head. So I like it because it is recreating. And the beauty of hip-hop, and I think I heard someone say it, is that hip-hop didn't create anything, but it recreated everything, right? And when we put our stamp on it, like with hip-hop, we put our stamp on fashion, right? We can take some ski goggles and make it hip-hop, right? We can take business clothes and make it hip-hop. You know, anything. We take a car and make it hip-hop. So it's like we can put our stamp on it. So I like when artists resample other artists from that time. And then I like the fact that now, even now, like it was, you know, everybody sampled James Brown back in the day, you know, soul, then we got into a rock phase, and we got into jazz phase, and now you've got people sampling things like Italian prog rock and different things like that. So it's like hip hop is, as long as there's other genres to pull from, so it's like hip hop's the original AI, right? As long as there's something out there that we can pull from, we can create it, recreate it, and make it fresh. So that's all.
Joy with the Moana Nui Podcast. You know, I love what you said about the sampling. If I remember correctly, like even some of the earliest hip hop sampled disco, and people wondered where did disco go, and it kind of came into
Absolutely.
Early hip hop. You mentioned Mad Men, and I'm a big soundtrack, like TV show soundtrack fan, and so I'm interested to know what was it like to work on that, and what, if any, soundtracks are some of your favorites, like from movies or what have you?
Okay. Yeah, so for Mad Men, my producer RJD2 worked on that. I didn't necessarily work on that. For soundtracks, man, when you say that, I miss soundtracks. Because I remember soundtracks more than I remember movies. Like I like New Jersey Drive soundtrack, you know, things like that. I think maybe New Jersey Drive might be my favorite soundtrack. And the crazy thing is I've never seen that movie. I just know that soundtrack because that's how impactful they were. But yeah, I wish people would get back more into just doing soundtracks. And I mean, I get it now because we don't have kind of the outlets to go out and buy music. I think people are more into scoring music and things like that, especially with hip-hop producers and artists now. We used to do the soundtracks because a lot of times we couldn't get into the movies, right? They'd have a movie that was somewhat based on, you know, urban culture, and, you know, they wouldn't necessarily have, you know, just songs in it now. So, but, you know, things have changed now. So.
Last question.
I would love to be a part of it. So. I don't know which one of you first.
Last question.
Rocks to be pursued.
As you mentioned, how goggles and business suits and cars can be hip hop. Like even as you were saying that, I could visualize examples from the music videos I saw growing up, from like the little scrappies and the business suits and just the different cars. That's easy. That's it all day. Typical fofos all day. We can talk about that all day. And you obviously like long experience in the game. You've seen hip hop undergo a lot of changes. From where it was from where you were when you started to what it is now, what is your thoughts on the current state of hip hop?
My current state of hip hop, and I try not to be the get off my lawn type of guy. So let me preface by saying that. One thing I want to say with the current state of hip hop is, and this is with anything, I want hip hop to be based on the actual talent, right? Like you couldn't be the top rock guitar player and only know 2 chords, right? You know, you can't be the top jazz musician without knowing how to master your skill. So with hip hop, I just want it to be to a point where, and this is what I want for all music, is for it to be based on skill. Because when I grew up, I grew up watching MTV and things like that. And even the earlier rappers, when I saw Run DMC and Rakim, I was like, I don't know how they do it, but I have to figure out how to do that. And there was a 5, 6, 7-year learning curve before I just was writing rhymes. Nobody heard me because I was afraid to be terrible, right? And then there was a point where I rhymed, but there was 5 years before I could probably get in the studio and record a song, right? So now what's happening is somebody will see someone and the bar is so low that people will say, you know what, I can do that. It's not I want to do that, it's I can do that. And within 3 months, they've got all their equipment and they've started working on their very first album. So I just wish as I wish with anything, I just wish there was more of a learning curve, right? Because I can only imagine if I decided, I started rhyming at 9 years old. I can imagine if I put out my first album at 9 years old, I would absolutely hate that album, right? It's almost like as an artist, the first thing that you're drawing, right? Your first pictures aren't the greatest. So I just wish there was more of a learning curve and a more emphasis on talent, because if you're not basing it on a certain level of talent, anybody can do it, anybody can come in and take it away and claim it. So I just want more creativity and just people focused on just innovation, because, being different is what pushes any genre,
Last question.
So how do you feel about quote unquote one-hit wonders that come along?
So here's my take on one-hit wonders, is I don't have a problem with one-hit wonders. I just feel like it should be similar to how it was in the 60s and 70s, right? Where everybody didn't get an album. You had some artists that had great 45s, you had artists that had great singles. Everybody's not cut out to make a full album, right? You buy an album and 2 songs are great. That means you weren't ready to do an album. So with one-hit wonders, cool, give them a single and things like that. But I always wonder, what do you perform as a one-hit wonder on tour, right? And it's not enough to like a Vanilla Ice, but how long could a show be, right, for me? I only know like 1 or 2 songs and I'm a hip hop head. So I just feel like, some people are good at just making 1 song here and there. But I will say with one-hit wonders now, this era would be great for them because you can just put out a song right now on Spotify. You don't have to follow up with an album and things like that. So you're always going to have those one-hit wonders. Some people just get lucky. Some people are just kind of financed and brought in by the machine. And we're always going to have that.
Okay. All right. And can you tell the audience how they can follow you on social media?
Okay. All right. On Instagram, it's Supastition, Supa On Twitter and X, it's Supastition_NC. And I also have Supastition.com. So I'm pretty much on most of the social media apps. I try to get up there when I can. Don't do it as much. I'm a working man. I got a 9-to-5 job. I'm an engineer. That's my day job. So.
So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If they won't tell it, we will.
If this the land of the free, it was a freedom then, when they annexed Hawaii and called it cedar lands, without any type of payment and no signing off. Called themselves a republic in 1894. 1.2 million acres overtaken from the native Hawaiians. When they resisted, the West retaliated in violence and erasure. The Hawaiian language is banned as part of colonialism's plan to expand, yeah.
Stuck between a rock and a hard place. Multiple bombings of Kaho'olawe as a part of their ongoing war with Asia. Used it as a place for target practice. No consent or compensation. Colonizers call for annexation. The work of all the locals. School will never let you know. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If they won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If they won't tell it, we will. We will.
So if you put Hawaii into perspective, well, Black and Asian history is interconnected. Considering the fight with the Pacific, then of course versus Asia, they was treated as a middleman for war, but didn't let the Western colorism run its course. Cause dark skin was a sign of dignity to core. The land was taken in the name of capitalism, when prior to it was an actual kingdom. Clap back at the system.
Stuck between a rock and a hard place. Multiple bombings of Kaho'olawe as a part of their ongoing war with Asia. Used it as a place for target practice. No consent or compensation. Colonizers call for annexation. The work of all the locals. School will never let you know. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If they won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If they won't tell it, we will. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If they won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If they won't